My name is Julia, and I never imagined my life would turn out like this. I grew up in a pretty normal family, well, normal for us anyway. My dad was always busy with his window frame business, and my mom took care of the house. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. Dad rarely talked about work at home. He'd come in late, give Mom a quick kiss, and ask me how school was. That was about it. I didn't mind though. I was happy in my own little world. I remember the day everything changed. I was 22, fresh out of college and trying to figure out what to do with my life. I overheard Dad on the phone, his voice tense. "No, absolutely not. I won't let you take over my company. I've worked too hard for this," he said. I shouldn't have eavesdropped, but I couldn't help it. My stomach twisted as I listened. Dad's company was in trouble? Why hadn't he said anything? That night at dinner, I watched him closely. He seemed normal, joking with Mom about her overcooked pot roast. But I saw the worry lines around his eyes, the way his smile didn't quite reach them. I had to do something. But what? I didn't know the first thing about business. Still, I couldn't just sit back and watch my family's livelihood get destroyed. The next day, I did some digging. It wasn't hard to find out who was trying to take over Dad's company. Big shot businessman named Robert Caldwell. His office wasn't far from our house. The receptionist looked at me like I was crazy when I asked to see Mr. Caldwell. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked, eyebrow raised. "No, but it's important. Please, just 5 minutes," I begged. She must have taken pity on me, because after a phone call, she waved me towards the elevator. "Top floor," she said. The ride up felt like it took forever. When the doors opened, I was face to face with Robert Caldwell himself. He was older than I expected, silver-haired and sharp-eyed. Well, he said, looking me up and down. "What do we have here?" I swallowed hard. "Mr. Caldwell, I'm Julia Thompson. I'm here about my father's company, Thompson Windows." His eyebrows shot up. "Thompson's daughter? This is unexpected. Come in, let's talk." I followed him into his office, trying not to gape at the view. He settled behind his massive desk and gestured for me to sit. "So, Miss Thompson, what can I do for you?" I took a deep breath. "Please don't take over my father's company. It means everything to him. There must be another way." Caldwell leaned back, studying me. "Interesting. I have a proposition for you, Miss Thompson. I'll leave your father's company alone, if you agree to marry my son." I stared at him, sure I'd misheard. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. Marry my son, make him grow up a little. Do that, and your father's company is safe." I left Caldwell's office in a daze. Marry his son? Was he insane? But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't have much choice. It was either this, or watch my father's life's work crumble. The next day, I found myself back in that intimidating office. Caldwell was waiting, a smug smile on his face. "So, Miss Thompson, have you made your decision?" I took a deep breath. "Yes. I'll do it. I'll marry your son." Caldwell clapped his hands together. "Excellent. Let's introduce you two, shall we?" Before I knew it, I was being ushered into another room. And there he was, Caldwell's son. I'd expected some stuffy businessman type, but the man who stood up to greet me was anything but. He was tall, with messy dark hair and a crooked smile. "Hey," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Jack. You must be Julia?" I shook his hand, trying not to show my surprise. "Yeah, that's me." Jack's father cleared his throat. "I'll leave you two to get acquainted." As soon as the door closed behind him, Jack's casual demeanor vanished. He ran a hand through his hair, looking uncomfortable. "Look, I'm sorry about this. My dad, he's got some pretty old-fashioned ideas." I shrugged, trying to seem nonchalant. "It's fine. We're both adults, right? We can handle this." Jack laughed, but it sounded forced. Yeah, sure. Just a casual arranged marriage. No big deal. We spent the next hour talking, and I hate to admit it, but Jack was kind of interesting. He was smart and funny, even if he did seem a bit irresponsible. I could see why his father wanted him to grow up. Over the next few weeks, Jack and I started dating, if you could call it that. We went out to dinners, movies, the usual stuff. But there was always this undercurrent of awkwardness. We both knew this wasn't real, no matter how much we pretended. And so, 6 months after that fateful meeting in Caldwell's office, I found myself walking down the aisle. My dad looked so proud, so happy. He had no idea of the deal I'd made to save his company. As I said my vows, I looked into Jack's eyes. There was no love there, not really. But there was friendship, and maybe that could be enough. The reception was a blur of congratulations and champagne. Jack's mother, Elizabeth, cornered me at one point, her smile tight. "Welcome to the family, dear," she said, her voice dripping with insincerity. "I do hope you'll make Jack happy." I plastered on my best fake smile. "I'll certainly try, Mrs. Caldwell." As we left for our honeymoon, I caught a glimpse of my father-in-law. He was beaming, clearly pleased with himself. I felt a flash of anger. This was all just a game to him. The first few years of our marriage were interesting, to say the least. Jack and I settled into a routine of sorts. We lived in a nice house, courtesy of his father's wealth, but it felt more like we were roommates than husband and wife. I tried my best to be a good influence on Jack. Slowly but surely, I saw changes in him. He started spending less time with his party-loving friends and more time at the office with his father. I could see the pride in his father's eyes when Jack started showing real interest in the business. It made me feel like maybe this whole arrangement wasn't for nothing. Jack's mother, on the other hand, was a different story. She never outright said anything, but I could feel her disapproval radiating off her in waves. The way she'd purse her lips when I spoke, or the backhanded compliments she'd give. "Oh, Julia, that dress is interesting. So brave of you to wear something like that." I'd grit my teeth and smile. "Thank you, Mrs. Caldwell." Despite the challenges, I held on to hope. Maybe, just maybe, Jack and I could grow to love each other. Maybe when we had kids, things would change. But life had other plans. It was a crisp fall day when we got the news. Jack and I sat in the doctor's office, the silence heavy between us. "I'm sorry," the doctor said, his voice gentle. "But the tests show that you, Mr. Caldwell, are unable to father children." The words hit me like a physical blow. No children. The one thing I'd been counting on to bring us closer, to make this marriage real, was now impossible. That night, as I lay awake, I thought about my own parents. Dad's business had flourished since my marriage to Jack. He'd even managed to double his turnover. I was happy for him, truly. But I couldn't help feeling a bit lost. I wanted to work, to have a purpose beyond being Jack's wife. But when I brought it up to him, his response was swift and firm. "Work? Why would you need to work? We have more than enough money." "It's not about the money, Jack. I want to do something meaningful." He shook his head. "In our circle, wives don't work. They do charity. Why don't you start a foundation or something?" And so, the Julia Caldwell Foundation for Children with Cancer was born. It wasn't what I'd imagined for myself, but it gave me purpose. I threw myself into the work, organizing fundraisers, visiting hospitals, doing whatever I could to help. Jack didn't seem to care much about my new passion. In fact, he didn't seem to care much about anything I did these days. We were living parallel lives, inhabiting the same space, but rarely intersecting. Years passed. 10, to be exact. And then, everything changed again. Jack's father died suddenly of a heart attack. Just like that, Jack was thrust into the role of CEO. I tried to be supportive, but I could see him struggling under the weight of his new responsibilities. 2 years after that, we got more bad news. Jack's mother had cancer. We should move her to a care facility, Jack said, his voice detached. They can take better care of her there. But his mother refused. I will die in my own home, she declared, her chin lifted defiantly. And so, drawing on my years of experience with the Cancer Foundation, I took charge of her care. I hired nurses, coordinated treatments, and spent hours by her bedside. To my surprise, Elizabeth's attitude towards me began to soften. One day, as I was adjusting her pillows, she caught my hand. "You're a good woman, Julia," she said softly. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Thank you, Mrs. Caldwell." 5 years passed since Jack took over his father's company. I wish I could say things improved, but the truth was far from it. Jack's behavior became increasingly erratic. He was drinking more, coming home at odd hours, and snapping at me for the smallest things. One day, I received a call from Jack's assistant. "Mrs. Caldwell, I'm sorry to bother you, but Mr. Caldwell hasn't been to the office in days. Is everything all right?" When he finally stumbled home that night, reeking of alcohol, I confronted him. "Jack, what's happening?" "Your assistant called." "You haven't been to work?" He laughed bitterly. "Work? What's the point? The company's going under anyway. Dear old Dad left me a sinking ship, and I couldn't keep it afloat." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. All those years of hard work, gone? And Jack seemed almost relieved? Desperate to salvage something, I reached out to my father. Despite being semi-retired, he agreed to help. He offered Jack a position as his deputy, hoping to mentor him back to success. But Jack's heart wasn't in it. He showed up late, left early, and generally did the bare minimum. I watched helplessly as my father's sales figures began to drop. I knew I had to have a serious talk with Jack. One night, after he'd had a few drinks, as usual, I approached him. "Jack, we need to talk about work. You're barely showing up. My father's company is suffering because of you." Jack's face contorted with anger. "Oh, so now it's my fault? I never wanted this, Jules. Any of it." "What are you talking about?" He laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "This life. This marriage. I'm just waiting for Mom to kick the bucket so I can sell her house and get out of here." I stared at him, horrified. "How can you say that? Your mother is dying, and all you care about is her money? Don't act all high and mighty," he spat. "We both know this marriage is a sham. You're just as eager to get out as I am." Disgusted, I turned to leave the room. As I opened the door, I came face to face with Jack's mother. The look on her face told me she'd heard everything. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then, silently, she reached out and squeezed my hand. In that gesture, I felt her gratitude, her understanding, and her sorrow. The day I got the call about my parents' plane crash, my world shattered. Mom and Dad, gone in an instant. Their small plane to Hawaii, meant to be a second honeymoon, became their final journey. I needed support, someone to lean on. But Jack? He was nowhere to be found. My own husband couldn't even be bothered to show up to the funeral. As I stood there, watching my parents' caskets lowered into the ground, I felt more alone than ever. After the funeral, anger began to replace my sorrow. How dare he? How could he abandon me when I needed him most? With this newfound fury fueling me, I marched into Dad's company, our company now, I supposed. The sight that greeted me when I entered Dad's old office made my blood boil. There was Jack, lounging in Dad's chair like he owned the place, barking orders like some conquering hero. "Jack," I said, my voice tight with barely contained rage. "We need to talk." He looked up, his face a mask of annoyance. "What is it now, Jules? Can't you see I'm busy?" "Busy?" I spat. "You couldn't even be busy enough to come to my parents' funeral." Jack rolled his eyes. "Oh, here we go with the moralizing again. You know what, Jules? Always nagging, always pushing. Well, I'm done with it. And I'm done with you. I stared at him, shocked. Then I saw something change in his eyes. A cold, calculating look replaced the anger. You know, Jules, he said, his voice suddenly calm. This company? It's worth about $17 million. And guess what? As deputy director, it's all mine now. My heart dropped. What are you talking about? He leaned back in the chair, Dad's chair, with a smug smile. I'm the deputy director. I have all the passwords, access to all the accounts. I'm in charge now, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't do this, I said, my voice shaking. You've already run your father's company into the ground. I won't let you do the same to my father's legacy. Jack laughed, a cold, harsh sound. Oh, I'm not going to run it. I'm going to sell it, piece by piece. And then I'm going to live like a king. Before I could stop him, he turned to the computer. I watched in horror as he transferred a large sum from the company account to his personal one. There, he said, turning back to me. That should keep me comfortable for a while. Then, as if this whole thing was just a minor inconvenience, he reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a stack of papers. He tossed them at me casually. Oh, and here, divorce papers. I think it's time we ended this farce, don't you? I caught the papers reflexively, my mind reeling. This couldn't be happening. It was too much, too fast. My parents dead, my marriage over, my father's company being stolen right in front of me. I left the office in a daze, divorce papers clutched in my hand. But as I walked, something inside me shifted. I'd spent years bending to Jack's will, to his father's manipulations. No more. It was time to fight back. With renewed determination, I headed straight to my father's lawyer's office. Mr. Henderson had been Dad's friend and confidant for years. If anyone could help me, it would be him. Julia, Mr. Henderson said, rising to greet me as I entered his office. I'm so sorry about your parents. How are you holding up? I collapsed into the chair across from him, the events of the day spilling out in a rush. Mr. Henderson listened patiently, his expression growing grimmer by the minute. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair, a small smile playing on his lips. Julia, I think it's time I shared something with you. Your father's will. He made some changes just before the accident. As he read the will, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. The company, it was mine. All mine. Dad had left it to me, not Jack. But there was more. Mr. Henderson looked up from the papers, his eyes twinkling. There's something else you should know. Your father dismissed Jack 2 weeks before his death. Fired him outright. I couldn't help it, I laughed. A real, genuine laugh for the first time in what felt like forever. So all those orders Jack was giving. Completely meaningless, Mr. Henderson confirmed. Then he pulled out an envelope. There's one more thing. A letter from your father. With shaking hands, I opened it. Dad's familiar handwriting blurred as tears filled my eyes. My dearest Julia, it began. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I'm sorry for leaving you like this, but I hope I've left you with the tools to build the life you deserve. The company is yours now. And Jules? It's time to let go of Jack. You've given enough of yourself to that marriage. It's time to live for you. I love you, sweetheart. Make me proud. I looked up at Mr. Henderson, wiping my eyes. Do you have a pen? Without a word, he handed me one. I signed the divorce papers Jack had given me, feeling lighter with each stroke of the pen. Can you file these? I asked, handing them back. I want this done as quickly as possible. Mr. Henderson nodded. Consider it done. As I left his office, I felt free. For the first time in years, maybe for the first time ever, I was in control of my own life. No more Jack, no more Caldwell's pulling my strings. On impulse, I pulled out my phone and called Sarah, my best friend from the charity foundation. Sarah? It's Julia. Want to meet for coffee? I've got some news. An hour later, we were seated in our favorite cafe, lattes in hand. So, Sarah said, eyeing me curiously. What's this big news? I took a deep breath, then let it all out. Jack, the company, the divorce. Sarah listened, her eyes widening. When I finished, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Girl, you're free. And now you're the boss. I couldn't help but smile at her enthusiasm. I don't know, Sarah. Can I really run a company? She fixed me with a stern look. Are you kidding me? Julia, you've been running that charity foundation like a pro for years. You're smart, you're organized, and you actually care about people. You're going to be an amazing CEO. After my talk with Sarah, I felt invigorated. It was time to face the music and get my things from Jack's house. I never really thought of it as my home, and now I knew why. I found my mother-in-law, Elizabeth, in the living room. Her face was drawn, tired from her ongoing battle with cancer. Elizabeth, I said gently, I'm here to get my things. Jack and I, we're getting divorced. To my surprise, her eyes filled with tears. Julia, I know I haven't always been kind to you. But you've been so good to me. Would you consider taking me with you? I was stunned. You want to come with me? Before she could answer, the front door slammed open. Jack stormed in, his face red with fury. He shouted, pointing at me. What the hell did you do? The company accounts are blocked. I can't access the money. I straightened my spine, looking him dead in the eye. That money isn't yours, Jack. It never was. Oh, and by the way, my father fired you 2 weeks ago. You have no claim to the company. I've already instructed security not to let you in the building. Jack's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Then his gaze shifted, noticing his mother packing a suitcase. Mom? What are you doing? Elizabeth looked at her son, her expression a mix of sadness and determination. I'm going with Julia. I'm sorry, Jack, but you've proven to be unreliable. Jack's face turned an even deeper shade of red. Unreliable? Me? This is all your fault. You raised me to be this way. You and your coddling and your expectations. He turned to me, his voice dripping with venom. Fine. Get out. Both of you. I don't need either of you. I felt a wave of pity for him. This angry, bitter man was a far cry from the charming, if irresponsible, guy I'd married. But I couldn't let that sway me. Not anymore. Come on, Elizabeth, I said softly. Let's get your things. As we packed, Jack continued to rant and rave, hurling insults and blame. But we tuned him out, focusing on the task at hand. The drive to my parents' house was quiet. Elizabeth dozed in the passenger seat, the stress of the day taking its toll. As we pulled up to the house, a lump formed in my throat. It felt strange coming here without Mom and Dad. We're here, I said softly, gently waking Elizabeth. I helped her inside, leading her to my parents' room. It felt right, somehow, to give her the space. Are you sure? Elizabeth asked, her eyes wide as she took in the room. I nodded, swallowing past the lump in my throat. Yes. I think they would have wanted it this way. As I helped Elizabeth settle in, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Grief for my parents, relief at being free from Jack, uncertainty about the future. But underneath it all, there was a glimmer of hope. Taking over Dad's company was like diving into the deep end of a pool without knowing how to swim. Those first few months were a whirlwind of meetings, financial reports, and sleepless nights. But I was determined to make it work. I hired Tom, a brilliant business consultant, as my right-hand man. He patiently guided me through the intricacies of running a multi-million-dollar company. You've got good instincts, Julia, he'd say. Trust them. Slowly but surely, I found my footing. 6 months in, I wasn't just treading water, I was swimming laps. The company's performance began to improve, and I felt a surge of pride knowing Dad would have been pleased. Through it all, I never neglected the Cancer Foundation. If anything, my work there became even more important to me. It was a link to my past and a beacon for my future. Elizabeth's condition worsened over time. I threw myself into her care, determined to make her final days as comfortable as possible. We grew close during those 2 years, healing old wounds and forming a bond one never thought possible. The day she passed, I held her hand and whispered, "Thank you for everything, Elizabeth." She squeezed my hand weakly, a small smile on her face, before slipping away peacefully. I organized the funeral myself, making sure everything was perfect. Jack didn't show up. I wasn't surprised, but it still stung to see how far he'd fallen. A few weeks after the funeral, I received a call from Mr. Henderson. "Julia, there's something you need to see. Can you come to my office?" When I arrived, I was shocked to see Jack there, a young blonde hanging off his arm. He smirked at me. "Well, if it isn't the little CEO. Don't worry, I'm just here to collect my inheritance. Mom and I might have had our differences, but blood is thicker than water, right?" I bit my tongue, waiting for Mr. Henderson to speak. The lawyer cleared his throat and began reading Elizabeth's will. As he spoke, I watched Jack's smug expression morph into disbelief, then fury. "And so, I leave my house and all my savings to Julia Thompson, with the stipulation that the money be donated to the Cancer Foundation she so passionately supports." Tears sprang to my eyes. Elizabeth's final act of kindness overwhelmed me. Jack exploded. "This is bullshit. She manipulated Mom. She's a fraud, a gold digger. She ruined my life, and now she's stealing my inheritance." His girlfriend, looking bewildered, stepped away from him. "You said we'd be set for life with this money. I'm out of here." She stormed out, leaving Jack sputtering. As I left the office, I heard Jack's continued ranting fade behind me. I felt light, free. Elizabeth's gift wasn't just about the money, it was validation. She had seen me, truly seen me, and found me worthy.
Hey everyone, I'm Astrid, a single mom to the most amazing 10-year-old Tommy. He's autistic, and every day with him is an adventure. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but it's not easy, especially after a messy divorce. Right now, I'm packing for the annual family reunion, and Tommy is bouncing off the walls. "Mom, do we have to go?" Aunt Karen always pinches my cheeks too hard. I sigh, zipping up his suitcase. "I know, buddy, but family is important, even when they're a pain in the neck." The truth is, I'm dreading this reunion as much as Tommy. My family isn't exactly known for their understanding, especially Aunt Karen and her son Derek. Last year, Karen had the nerve to say, "Maybe if you disciplined him more, he wouldn't be so, you know." Yeah, I know, Karen. But as a special education teacher, I've dedicated my life to advocating for kids like Tommy. So when my own family acts like this, it stings even more. As we pull up to the reunion, I give Tommy a pep talk. "Remember your coping strategies, okay? If it gets too loud or overwhelming, just give me the signal, and we'll take a break." He nods, clutching his favorite fidget toy. "Can I bring my own snacks? What if they don't have anything I can eat?" "Already packed, kiddo. I've got your back." We step out of the car, and the fake smiles begin. Aunt Karen is the first to greet us, her voice dripping with that insincere sweetness. "Oh, Astrid, and little Tommy, hadn't you grown?" She reaches for Tommy's cheeks, and he flinches. I step between them, forcing a smile. "Hey, Aunt Karen, remember, Tommy's not big on physical contact." She huffs. "Well, I never. In my day, children respected their elders." I bite my tongue. It's not worth the fight. Then I spot Derek lounging by the grill, his phone in hand, mischief in his eyes. "Hey, cuz, brought the he says, using a slur that makes my blood boil. I take a deep breath. "Derek, that word is not okay. Tommy is autistic, and he's brilliant." Derek rolls his eyes. "Whatever, same thing, right?" I'm about to give him a piece of my mind when Tommy tugs on my sleeve. Mom, can we go inside? It's too loud up here. I nod, shooting one last glare at Derek as we head in. As we walk inside, I overhear the whispers. Poor Astrid, stuck with that burden. I heard autism is caused by bad parenting. Why'd she even bring him? He'll ruin the reunion for everyone. My heart cracks, but I stand tall. We faced worse. Tommy and I can handle one weekend with these people. Little did I know, this reunion was about to test us in ways I never imagined. The reunion was in full swing, and I was doing my best to keep Tommy comfortable. We found a quiet corner where he could play with his toys while I chatted with the few relatives who weren't as judgmental. But of course, Aunt Karen couldn't leave us alone. She cornered me by the punch bowl, her voice full of fake concern. Astrid dear, don't you think Tommy should be mingling more? It's not healthy for him to be so isolated. I took a deep breath. Tommy's doing great, Aunt Karen. He's engaging in his own way. She tatted. If you just be firmer with him. I'm plenty firm, and I'm also understanding of his needs. Before she could argue further, Derek sauntered over. Hey, Aunt Astrid, want me to show Tommy around? Maybe introduce him to some of the younger kids. I hesitated. Derek had never shown interest in Tommy before, but maybe this was a chance for things to improve. That's actually really nice of you, Derek. Tommy, buddy, want to go with your cousin for a bit? Tommy looked uncertain but nodded. As they walked away, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this reunion wouldn't be so bad after all. I couldn't have been more wrong. I was catching up with my cousin Sarah when I realized it had been a while since I'd seen Tommy. A knot formed in my stomach. Have you seen Tommy and Derek? Sarah frowned. I think I saw them heading out back earlier. I rushed outside, the knot tightening with every step. That's when I heard the laughter. Following the sound, I rounded the corner of the house and froze. There was Tommy sitting on the ground with a can in his hands. Derek and his friends were doubled over, laughing, phones out, and recording. As I got closer, I realized with horror what Tommy was holding, a can of dog food. Tommy, no, I shouted, rushing over. Spit that out, honey. Tommy looked confused and upset. But Derek said it was a special snack. I turned on Derek, fury boiling over. What the hell is wrong with you? Derek was still laughing. Chill, Aunt Astrid. It was just a joke. Look how many views it's already getting. I grabbed his phone, my vision going red. The video was already uploaded and comments were flooding in. Lol, what a freak. Is he really eating dog food? Take it down. Now. No way. This is gold. By now, a crowd had gathered. Aunt Karen pushed through. What's all this fuss about? Derek grinned. Just having some fun with Tommy, right little dude? Tommy was rocking back and forth, clearly distressed. I put my arm around him. Your son tricked Tommy into eating dog food and filmed it. Take the video down, or I swear to God. Karen scoffed. Oh, don't be so dramatic. Boys will be boys. Tommy's fine, aren't you, dear? Tommy didn't respond, too overwhelmed. I looked around, hoping someone would back me up, but all I saw were awkward glances and poorly hidden smirks. That's when I knew we had to leave. We're done here, I announced, helping Tommy to his feet. And if that video isn't down by the time we get home, I'll be contacting a lawyer. Derek rolled his eyes. Whatever. Can't take a joke. As we walked to the car, I heard the whisper start again as I buckled Tommy into his seat, my hands trembling with anger and hurt. She's overreacting, someone muttered. Tommy didn't even seem to mind. This is why you shouldn't bring special needs kids to family events. In the rearview mirror, I saw Aunt Karen and Derek laughing together as we pulled away. The tears started to fall as soon as we hit the main road. Tommy reached out and gently patted my arm. Don't cry, Mom. The snack tasted bad, but I'm okay. His innocence, his kindness, even after what they'd done to him, broke my heart all over again. I swallowed hard, wiping at my face. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. As we drove home in silence, I made a promise to myself and to Tommy. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Derek and Aunt Karen might think they'd had their fun, but they had no idea what was coming. Nobody messes with my kid and gets away with it. Nobody. The days following the reunion were a nightmare. Tommy's meltdowns became more frequent, the confusion and hurt from what had happened eating away at him. One night, as I tucked him into bed, he asked a question that broke me. Mom, why did Derek trick me? Aren't families supposed to be nice? I sighed, stroking his hair. Sometimes, honey, even family can be cruel. But that's on them, not you. You did nothing, Mom. Once he was asleep, I checked my phone. The video had gone viral. Comments flooded in, most of them filled with cruel jokes at Tommy's expense. My stomach turned. I spent hours reporting the video, emailing platforms to take it down. But for every one removed, 3 more popped up. Then the harassment started. Messages calling me a Karen for not being able to take a joke. Others saying Tommy deserved it for being weird. One night, fueled by anger and exhaustion, I started digging into Derek's online presence. What I found shocked me. This wasn't a one-time thing. Derek had an entire channel dedicated to pranks, most of them cruel, aimed at unsuspecting victims. Many targeted people with disabilities or differences. I reached out to some of the victims, and their stories made my blood boil. A girl with a stutter whom Derek had tricked into giving a speech, only to edit the video to make her sound worse. A boy with ADHD whom Derek convinced to take fake focus pills that were actually laxatives. One mom, Sarah, whose son had been a victim, became my ally. We started compiling evidence, building a case against Derek. He's been doing this for years, Sarah told me during one of our late-night strategy calls. The school knows, but his parents always smooth it over. He's untouchable. But I was determined to touch the untouchable. Digging deeper, I discovered Derek's endgame. He wasn't just a bully, he was an aspiring influencer. His cruelty was calculated, designed to shock and go viral. He even had a press kit, pitching himself to brands as an edgy prankster. It made me sick, but it also gave me an idea. If Derek wanted to be famous, I'd make him famous, but not in the way he wanted. I started reaching out to every victim I could find, every parent whose child had been hurt. I contacted autism advocacy groups, anti-bullying organizations. I was building an army. One night, as I worked late into the evening, Tommy padded into my office. Mom, are you still trying to make the bad video go away? I nodded, pulling him into a hug. Yeah, buddy, but I'm doing more than that. I'm going to make sure Derek can't hurt anyone else like he hurt you. Tommy was quiet for a moment and said, Good. I don't want any other kids to feel bad like I did. His words strengthened my resolve. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about protection. It was about justice. As Tommy went back to bed, I looked at my wall of evidence. Screenshots, testimonies, video clips, all painting a clear picture of who Derek really was. I picked up my phone, dialing Sarah's number. When she answered, I took a deep breath. I have a plan, but I'm going to need everyone's help. As I outlined my idea, a mix of anxiety and determination bubbled inside me. What I was about to do could backfire spectacularly, but if it worked, Derek would never hurt another person again. Maybe, just maybe, it would force my family and others like them to confront their own complicity in allowing this behavior to thrive. When I hung up, I looked at a picture of Tommy on my desk, my beautiful, kind, misunderstood boy. I touched the photo, making a silent promise. We're going to make this right, baby, no matter what it takes. The video dropped like a bomb. The real Derek. A history of cruelty spread faster than any of his pranks ever had. Testimonies from victims, clips of his worst jokes, and expert commentary on the harm of such behavior. It was all there. Within hours, Derek's follower count plummeted. Brands he'd been courting for sponsorships publicly distanced themselves. His dreams of internet fame were crumbling before his eyes. Then came the email from State University. In light of recent revelations, we are rescinding your acceptance. Aunt Karen, ever the enabler, went on a local news show to defend her misunderstood son. But in her attempt to paint Derek as the victim, she let slip. Of course I knew about the videos. Boys will be boys, and it was making him popular. The backlash was swift. Suddenly, it wasn't just about Derek anymore. The whole family was under scrutiny for allowing his behavior to continue unchecked. I used the momentum to launch Neurodiverse and Noticed, a campaign promoting understanding and protection for individuals like Tommy. The support was overwhelming. As for my family, most reached out with apologies, suddenly seeing the harm in their "it's just a joke" attitude. But it was too little, too late. Derek and Aunt Karen tried to apologize too, but I wasn't having it. You had years to do the right thing. You chose cruelty instead. We're done. Tommy and I found a new community, one that embraced him for who he was. Support groups, understanding friends, and a school that actually celebrated neurodiversity. One night, as I tucked Tommy in, he smiled up at me. "Mom, I'm glad we're not going to any more mean family reunions." I kissed his forehead. "Me too, buddy, me too." As I closed his door, I felt a weight lift. We'd been through hell, but we'd come out stronger. And more importantly, we'd made a difference, not just for ourselves, but for countless others who had been silenced for too long. The fight wasn't over. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were winning. That's the end of Astrid and Tommy's story. Now I've got a question for you. Was Astrid right to completely cut off her family, even those who apologized? Or should she have given them a second chance to make amends and learn from their mistakes? This is a tough one. On one hand, forgiveness can be healing. On the other, some actions might be unforgivable, especially when they hurt our kids. What would you have done in Astrid's shoes? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.
Hey there, I'm Michael Anderson. Just your average 40-year-old history teacher living the suburban dream in Boston with my wife, Lisa, and our son, Ethan. Ethan's a smart kid minus 17 and already setting his sights on Ivy League schools. Since the day he was born, I've been stashing away money for his college fund, dreaming of him walking across some prestigious campus. Life was good. I'd come home from teaching teenagers about the Civil War, and Lisa would be there, usually on the phone with her sister, Vanessa. Now, Vanessa was a whole different story. She had a talent for burning through money faster than a teenager with a credit card. Always calling Lisa with some new crisis, car trouble, maxed out credit cards. It was like a broken record. I tried to keep the peace because, well, family is family. But every time Vanessa called, my blood pressure spiked. One night, I was sitting at the kitchen table with a calculator, going over Ethan's college fund. He's been talking about schools like Harvard and Yale, so I wanted to see where we stood. That's when I noticed something wasn't right. The numbers didn't add up. At first, I thought I was just tired, maybe had too much coffee, but no matter how many times I checked, the math was off. "Hey, Lisa," I called out. She walked in, still on the phone with, you guessed it, Vanessa. "What's up?" she asked, covering a mouthpiece. "These college fund numbers look off. Did we make any withdrawals?" Her face froze. It was like watching a deer in headlights. Maybe it's a bank error," she said, trying to play it off. But I knew something was wrong. She quickly mumbled something to Vanessa and hung up, but the damage was done. Doubt was already creeping in. "Lisa, what's going on?" I asked, trying to keep calm. "Nothing, Michael. You're probably just tired. Let's look at it in the morning," she said, brushing it off. But I couldn't let it go. I stayed up late, combing through bank statements. The more I dug, the worse it got. Thousands of dollars had been transferred to an account I didn't recognize. My stomach turned. This was Ethan's future at stake. The next morning, I confronted Lisa. "I need to know what's happening with our son's college fund." My voice was barely above a whisper. She broke down in tears. "I'm so sorry, Michael. Vanessa needed help. Her daughter, Megan, wanted to study abroad, and they couldn't afford it. I thought we could spare it." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. All those years of saving, and Lisa had just handed the money over to Vanessa. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. The next morning, I went straight to the bank. The teller, a young guy named Jake, looked at me with sympathy as I explained the situation. "Mr. Anderson, I can see multiple transfers from your account over the past year. The most recent was a large sum, $155,000. My heart sank. "Can you tell me where it went?" Jake hesitated. "I'm sorry, sir. I can't disclose that without the account holder's consent. I am the account holder. It's my son's college fund." "I understand, but the transfers were authorized by a joint account holder. your wife, Lisa Anderson. The drive home was a blur. I burst through the door, finding Lisa in the kitchen. Want to tell me why you've been draining our son's future? Her face went pale. Michael, I can explain. Explain what? How you've been stealing from Ethan. It's not stealing. Vanessa needed help. Megan got into an amazing study abroad program. I cut her off. Megan's 14, Lisa. What kind of program takes middle schoolers? Her silence said it all. I grabbed my laptop, furiously typing. A few clicks later, and there it was, Megan's social media, flooded with pictures of her lounging on Mediterranean beaches, shopping in Paris, partying. Some study program. This isn't studying, Lisa. This is a luxury vacation. Lisa broke down. Vanessa was in trouble. She said if Megan didn't get this opportunity, she'd fall into the wrong crowd. I was just trying to help. And what about our family? What about Ethan's dreams? Just then, Ethan walked in. Dad? Mom? What's going on? I couldn't bear to tell him. Nothing, buddy. Just a misunderstanding about finances. But he was too smart for that. He looked between us, sensing the tension. Is this about my college fund? Lisa rushed to reassure him. Don't worry, sweetie. Everything's fine. But I couldn't keep the truth in any longer. No, it's not fine. Your mother has been taking money from your college fund to support your aunt. Ethan's face fell. What? But all my hard work, my grades, was it all for nothing? Lisa tried to comfort him, but he backed away. We'll figure it out, honey. I promise. I wasn't done. How long has this been going on, Lisa? And don't lie to me. Not again. She couldn't meet my eyes. A few years. But it started small, just a little here and there. I felt like I was drowning. A few years? What else have you been hiding? Her silence was deafening. Then, a ping from her phone. A message flashed on the screen. Can't wait to see you tonight. Love, David. My world shattered. Who's David? Lisa's face crumpled. He's just a colleague. But I knew everything. The late nights at the office, the secret phone calls, the sudden attention to her appearance. It all made sense now. A colleague? Is that what we're calling it now? I said, my voice heavy with disbelief. Ethan stood between us, his face etched with confusion and hurt. Mom, what's Dad talking about? He asked, his voice trembling. But Lisa couldn't respond. She just stood there, tears streaming down her face as everything we'd built together unraveled before us. I turned to Ethan, my heart breaking for him. Pack a bag, son. We're going to stay at Uncle Rob's for a while. As we walk out the door, I could hear Lisa's muffled sobs. But I couldn't bring myself to look back. The woman I thought I knew, the life I thought we had, it was all a lie. Now I had to figure out how to pick up the pieces and salvage a future for my son. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Ethan and I crashed at my brother Rob's place while I tried to clear my head. One morning, over a cup of Rob's terrible coffee, he gave me a reality check. Mike, you can't just sit here stewing. You need a game plan. He was right. I called up my old college buddy Steve, who'd become a hotshot divorce lawyer. Michael, buddy, I'm so sorry you're going through this. Let's meet and talk strategy. In Steve's office, surrounded by law books and the faint smell of leather, I laid everything out on the table. So what's our move? I asked, feeling completely lost. Steve leaned forward, his eyes sharp. We document everything. Every transfer. Every lie. Every indiscretion. We build an airtight case. As we talked, my phone buzzed. Lisa again. I hit ignore. You need to think about Ethan's future, Steve continued. Have you considered relocating? That sparked an idea. I reached out to my old mentor, Dr. Harrison, now the headmaster at Westridge Academy in Seattle. Michael, My boy, it's been too long, he said warmly when I called. A position, you say? Well, as luck would have it, things were falling into place, but I couldn't shake the anger. Vanessa's scam had to be exposed. So I made an anonymous tip to the Department of Education about her fraudulent study abroad program. Back at Rob's, Ethan was struggling. Dad, why can't we just go home? Maybe if we talk to Mom. I sat beside him on the worn-out couch. Son, sometimes things can't be fixed. But I promised you, your future is still bright. But what about college? All that money. We'll figure it out. I've got a lead on a job in Seattle. How do you feel about the West Coast? Ethan's eyes widened. Seattle? But what about my friends? My school? I know it's a lot, but think of it as a fresh start. And hey, maybe you'll end up at the University of Washington. I hear they got a great computer science program. That got a small smile out of him. The next day, I met Lisa at a neutral coffee shop. The tension between us was thick enough to cut with a knife. Michael, please, can't we work this out? For Ethan's sake, she pleaded. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. Lisa, you didn't just betray me. You betrayed our son. His future. I was trying to help family, she protested. And what are we? Chopped liver? I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. By the way, how's David? Her face crumpled. It's not what you think. Save it. I've already talked to a lawyer. And Lisa, you might want to lawyer up too. I hear your firm is looking into some discrepancies. Her face went pale. What did you do? I stood up, tossing a few bills on the table. What you should have done. The right thing. As I walked out, my phone pinged. It was an email from Westridge Academy, offering me the position. That night, as Ethan and I packed our bags for our Seattle adventure, I felt a strange mix of sadness and hope. We were leaving behind a life built on lies. But heading towards a future full of possibilities, I turned to Ethan. You ready for this, kiddo? I asked, ruffling his hair. He gave me a determined nod, his eyes clear. Yeah, Dad, let's do this. As we loaded the car for our move, I caught a glimpse of Lisa standing across the street, tears in her eyes. There was a time when seeing her like that would have broken me, but I didn't waver. The road ahead was long, but for the first time in weeks, I felt like we were on the right path. The day I served Lisa with divorce papers felt surreal. She sat at the kitchen table, her face crumpling as she read through the documents, realization dawning on her. Michael, please. We can work this out, she pleaded, desperation in her voice. I shook my head. It's too late, Lisa. The trust is gone. As I turned to leave, her voice stopped me. What about Ethan? He needs his mother. He needs honesty and stability, something you couldn't give him. The next few months were chaotic. Lisa's law firm launched an investigation into her finances, uncovering years of misconduct. One day, her former colleague, Tom, called me. Mike, I don't know how to say this, but Lisa's been disbarred. There might be criminal charges. I felt a mix of vindication and sadness. Thanks for letting me know, Tom. Meanwhile, Vanessa's fraudulent study abroad scheme exploded into a public scandal. Her face was plastered across news outlets. One evening, I overheard Ethan talking to his cousin Megan. I'm so sorry, Megan. I had no idea, Ethan said, his voice soft. It's not your fault. Are you okay? Megan's voice cracked over the line. Ethan looked at me, his eyes full of confusion. I pulled him into a hug. Sometimes, kid, the people we love make big mistakes. But we'll get through this. Our move to Seattle was a breath of fresh air. Westridge Academy welcomed me warmly, and Dr. Harrison introduced me to the faculty. Everyone, please welcome Michael Anderson, our new American history teacher. Michael, care to say a few words? I cleared my throat, smiling. I'm honored to be here. Looking forward to shaping young minds and maybe learning a thing or two myself. Ethan thrived in his new school. One afternoon, he ran into our apartment, waving a letter in his hand. Dad, I got in. Full ride to UO. I grabbed him in a bear hug, my heart swelling with pride. I knew you could do it, son. That night, as we celebrated, I couldn't help but reflect on our journey, the betrayal, the pain, but also the strength we'd found. Months later, Rob called with news. Mike, you might want to sit down for this. Lisa's facing jail time. The embezzlement charges. It's not looking good. I sighed, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Thanks for letting me know, Rob. How's she holding up? Not great. She's lost everything. Her career, her family. After hanging up, I found Ethan in his room, poring over college brochures. Hey, kiddo. Got a minute? We talked about Lisa, about forgiveness, about moving forward. His maturity amazed me. Dad, I'm angry at Mom, but I don't hate her. Is that okay? I hugged him tight. That's more than okay, son. It's what makes you you. Later, I stood on the balcony, looking out over the Seattle skyline. A sense of peace washed over me. We'd been through hell, but we'd come out stronger. Ethan was heading toward a bright future, and I had a new lease on life. The road hadn't been easy, but standing there, I knew we'd made it. We'd survived the betrayal, cut out the toxicity, and built something beautiful from the ashes of our old life. And that, I realized, was the greatest triumph of all. What would you do if you discovered your spouse had betrayed your child's future? Share your thoughts below.
Hey everyone, I'm Karen, 18, a high school senior with big dreams of studying mass communication in college. Picture this, a small town with one main street and right in the middle, my Grandma Monica's convenience store. I've been spending most of my time there since I was tall enough to reach the cash register. Don't get me wrong, I love my family, but this whole working for free thing, it's getting old real fast. Karen, where are those price tags I asked for an hour ago? Grandma Monica's voice booms from the back of the store. I sigh, setting down my textbook. Coming, Grandma, just finishing up this chapter for tomorrow's test. Test schmest. This store won't run itself, you know. That's Grandma Monica for you minus 68 years old, a widow and ruler of her mini empire. She's got an iron grip on everything, especially me. Later that evening, I'm restocking shelves when my best friend Jade pops in. Still here, Karen? It's almost 9 p.m. Tell me about it. I've got a pile of college apps waiting for me at home, I mutter. Jade leans in, whispering, speaking of which, any word from State U? I shake my head. Nothing yet. I'm kinda worried, to be honest. Before I can finish, Grandma's voice cuts through. Karen, customer at the register. Jade gives me a sympathetic look. We'll talk later. Don't let her get to you, okay? After Jade leaves, it's just me and Grandma Monica. She's counting the day's earnings, eyeing me suspiciously. So all this college talk, you're not really serious about leaving, are you? I freeze. Of course I am, Grandma. It's been my dream to study mass communication. You know that. She scoffs. Dreams don't pay the bills, girl. This store is your future. It's in your blood. But Grandma, enough. Your parents understand the importance of family. Why can't you? Later, I call my mom. Mom, can you talk to Grandma? She's making it impossible for me to focus on my applications. Mom just sighs. Honey, you know how she is. Just try to balance things, okay? It's only for a little while longer. One night, as I'm closing up shop, Jade calls again. Any updates on your apps? I slump against the counter. Nothing. It's weird, right? I should have heard something by now. Maybe they're just slow. Don't stress. You've got this. But I can't shake the feeling something's off. Grandma's been acting all smug and secretive lately. Jade, what if Grandma's messing with my college plans? No way, she wouldn't. Would she? I glance toward Grandma's office, a knot forming in my stomach. I don't know, but I'm going to find out. As I hang up, I can't help but feel like a fight is coming. This store, this town, it's suffocating me. I need out. I need a future that's mine, and no one, not even Grandma Monica, is going to stand in my way. At least that's what I keep telling myself. But with each passing day, my confidence wavers. Will I ever break free, or am I destined to be stuck here forever? The days drive by, and I'm constantly checking my phone, refreshing my email. Nothing. Not a single response from any of the colleges I applied to. It's driving me crazy. Then one day at the store, I'm scrubbing the back office while Grandma's out on a supply run. I decide to deep clean the place, and that's when I see it, a corner of an envelope peeking out from behind the filing cabinet. Curious, I reach for it, my heart pounding. It's addressed to me from State University. With shaking hands, I pull it out, and a whole stack of letters tumbles to the floor. No, 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 no. I mutter to myself, ripping open the envelopes. Acceptance letters, scholarship offers, all addressed to me, all hidden away. I'm still sitting there, surrounded by open letters, when I hear the bell over the front door. Kareen, where are you, girl? I need help with these boxes. Grandma Monica's voice cuts through the air, but my rage is already bubbling over. I gather the letters, storming out to the front, clutching the stack in my hand. What is this? I demand, shoving the envelopes in her face. Why do you have my mail? Her eyes widen for a split second before they narrow. Where did you find those? Behind your filing cabinet. You've been hiding them from me. Why? She sets down the box she's carrying, her face hardening. You don't need those fancy schools filling your head with nonsense. Your place is here, with family. I can't believe what I'm hearing. My place? You mean slaving away in this store for free? That's not a future. That's a prison. Don't you dare talk to me like that. She snaps, slamming her hand on the counter. I've given you everything, a job, stability, and this is how you repay me. Repay you? For what? Stealing my future. My voice rises, fury overtaking any fear. I got into my dream school and you hid it from me. That school will ruin you, she retorts. It'll fill your head with ideas above your station. You belong here, running this store. It's in your blood. I laugh bitterly. No, it's in your blood. This store is your life, not mine. I can't believe you do this to me. Everything I've done is for your own good. You'll thank me one day, she says, her voice cold and resolute. Thank you? For crushing my dreams? For lying to me? Tears are streaming down my face. I will never thank you for this, never. I grab my backpack and the letters, shaking with anger. I'm done with this store and your manipulation. I'm going to college, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back, she shouts as I head for the exit. I pause, hand on the doorknob, not turning around. Goodbye, Grandma. I hope the store keeps you warm at night. With that, I'm out the door, stepping into the cool evening air. My hands tremble as my mind races. I've just burned a major bridge, but for the first time in years, I feel free, terrified, but free. I pull out my phone and dial Jade's number. Hey, I say when she picks up, my voice cracking. Can I crash at your place tonight? I've got a lot to tell you. As I walk toward Jade's house, clutching my acceptance letters, I realize this is just the beginning. The real fight for my future starts now. I'm sitting in Jade's room, surrounded by open letters and tissues. My eyes are puffy from crying, but I feel a strange mix of relief and anger. I can't believe she did this to you, Jade says, shaking her head. We need to tell your parents. I nod, picking up my phone. Mom? Dad? Can you come to Jade's house? It's important. An hour later, we're all crowded in Jade's living room. I spread out the letters on the coffee table. She hid these from me for weeks, I explain. Mom gasps, picking up an acceptance letter. Dad's face darkens. Are you sure, honey? Maybe there's a misunderstanding, Mom says hesitantly. I scoff. She admitted it, Mom. She said college would ruin me. We're so sorry, Kareen, Mom says, tears in her eyes. We should have protected you better. We'll support whatever you decide, she assures me, looking at Dad. Absolutely, Dad adds firmly. The next day at school, I seek out Mrs. Rodriguez, my favorite teacher. Mrs. R., I need your help. My grandmother hid my college acceptance letters, and now I'm worried about missing deadlines. Her eyes widen in shock. Oh, Karen, that's terrible. Let's see what we can do. We spend hours emailing and calling admissions offices. Most are understanding. Finally, Mrs. Rodriguez smiles. State U says they'll extend your deadline by 2 weeks. I breathe a sigh of relief. Thank you so much, Mrs. R. Later at home, I overhear my mom on the phone. Lisa, you can't let that girl throw her life away. Grandma Monica's voice crackles through the speaker. Mom, this is Karen's decision. We support her, my mom responds, her voice firm. Then you're all fools, Grandma snaps. But for the first time, I don't care what she thinks. This is my life, and I'm taking control. Mom hangs up the phone, looking exhausted. I'm so sorry, honey. We had no idea she could be like this. It's okay, Mom. We'll get through this. I try to sound confident, but the weight of everything still lingers. In my room, I open a new document on my laptop. Evidence against Monica. I begin typing, listing everything. Unpaid labor since age 14, emotional manipulation, mail theft, interference with education. As I write, a mix of sadness and determination takes over. This isn't just about college anymore. This is about standing up for myself and taking control of my future. I can hardly believe it when I hold the official acceptance letter from State University in my hands. Not only did I get in, but they're offering me a partial scholarship too. It feels surreal. Karen, that's amazing. Dad beams. And that's not all. Mom adds. Tell her about the radio station, honey. I can't help but smile. I got the part-time job at WKLM. I start next week, but my excitement doesn't last long. The next day at the radio station, my new boss, Rick, calls me into his office. Kareen, I've been getting some concerning calls about you, something about theft and unreliability. My heart sinks. Let me guess. Monica Thompson. Rick nods, looking uncomfortable. I take a deep breath. Rick, I can explain everything. After hearing my story, Rick's face softens. Damn kid, that's rough. Look, your work here has been great. I'm not letting you go over some petty small-town drama. Relief washes over me. Thanks, Rick. I really appreciate that. That night, I stay up late, my fingers flying over the keyboard. I'm done being the victim. It's time to fight back my way. The next morning, I hit post on my social media campaign. #SmallTownSecrets. My story of exploitation and escape. It starts small, a few shares, some supportive comments, but by lunchtime, it's all over town. By dinner, it's reached neighboring cities. Weeks pass in a blur of statements, interviews, and preparations for college. Then the bomb drops. Local business owner charged with multiple offenses. The headline screams of tax evasion, labor law violations, and mail tampering. I watch from my bedroom window as police cars pull up to Grandma Monica's house. There's a strange mix of sadness and vindication as I see her being escorted out. The day before I leave for college, Dad sits me down. The store's been sold, he says quietly. Part of the proceeds will go toward your education. I nod, feeling a chapter of my life close. The next day, surrounded by my parents, Jade, and a few close friends, I load up the car. As we drive past the boarded-up store, I feel a weight lift off my shoulders. Weeks later, I'm sitting in my dorm room, putting the finishing touches on my first college radio show script. I've learned a lot these past few months about standing up for myself, the power of truth, and forging my own path. I glance at the photo on my desk, me smiling with my parents on move-in day. No Grandma Monica in sight, and that's okay. I take a deep breath. The future is wide open, and for the first time in my life, I'm truly free. Now here's a question for you. Was Kareen justified in exposing her grandmother's actions publicly, or should she have tried to resolve the issue privately within the family? How far would you go to protect your future and dreams? Share your thoughts in the comments below.